Today's discussion question is, does meditation work for autistic people? These days, meditation is recommended like this all-powerful panacea that's supposed to help with basically everything. But does it always work for everyone? Can it sometimes be harmful? When is it not a good idea? What do you need to know as an autistic person trying meditation for the first time? Hi everyone, Paul Mikulev here from Autism from the Inside. I make weekly videos bringing the lens of neurodiversity to everyday practical questions concerning emotional intelligence and personal growth. Okay, that definitely needs some work, but that'll do for now. Let's get stuck into today's question. Does meditation work? Firstly, I'm curious to hear your experience. Many of you have probably tried it in various forms, or did you find it particularly challenging for reasons probably concerning your neurodiversity? I recently asked this on social media, and as you may expect, results were mixed. Everything from, yes, it's my special interest, to the ADHD part of my brain is not wired to anything that requires me to sit still. Many people said they can't imagine pictures in their head, but had good experiences with other practices such as breathing or dancing or chanting. Pretty commonly, generic guided meditations get a nope, that didn't work for me. But still, many people had success stories once they eventually found a way to make it work for them. Personally, my favorite response was, while I have successfully meditated for decades, it has never worked for me and never not worked for me. So overall, quite a mixed bag, right? So first, let's dive into some of the really common bad experiences, and then we can explore what you might like to try if generic solutions aren't working for you. So the first really big issue with meditation is the Panacea Effect. It is too common and too easy for people to say, have you tried meditation? Struggling with sleep? Try meditation. Struggling with headaches? Try meditation. Executive function issues? Try meditation. Anxiety, relationship challenges? Try meditation. Ironically, because it is extremely powerful and can probably help with all of those things I mentioned, it becomes way too easy and way too common to simply say, have you tried meditation? And for someone who has tried many times and it doesn't work, that can feel extremely invalidating. It's a generic solution that works for lots of other people, but if it doesn't work for me, that's not really much consolation. And to make matters worse, most people who give that advice don't really know all that much about meditation. They've had a very, very small exposure to a very, very limited type of meditation. And so they end up recommending you this one very specific generic thing that you have already tried, and it doesn't help you find an alternate solution or a different form of meditation that might be better suited for you. At best, this is, somewhat unhelpful generic advice, but at worst, it's ignoring a very real, very serious problem. It invalidates your experience, and it's a very easy, convenient excuse for people to avoid offering meaningful help. Often, meditation is not the answer, just like often CBT is not the answer. A good way to think about this is sometimes accepting your current situation is very helpful, and sometimes actively acting to improve and change your current situation would be much, much, much more helpful. So if you're in a situation that requires very serious action to immediately address this very serious issue, working on meditation and acceptance and fostering this internal sense of peace and calm in your life might be the exact opposite of what you need to take the necessary steps. In the long term, in my opinion, we need both. The skill of accepting your situation and the skill of changing your situation go hand in hand. So always recommending meditation or other acceptance-based strategies by themselves can be a problem if there's not also appropriate action on the other side to go with it. The next most common reason that I hear people say meditation doesn't work for me is that for a lot of us, visualizing images is difficult or impossible. I am constantly surprised about this, but almost every guided meditation, especially the really generic, really mainstream ones, focus almost exclusively on visualization. We have lots of other senses, lots of other ways of experiencing the world, and yet a very large proportion of common meditations that you will come across rely so heavily on visual. We have lots of other senses, lots of other ways of experiencing the world, and yet So many common guided meditations rely so heavily on that ability to visualize. So what do you do when they say, imagine this, and you just can't? Well, a few common responses are, well, this sucks. What am I supposed to do now? How do I follow these instructions when I just can't physically follow them? Another response, especially if you're new, might be, I'm not good at this. I'm trying to do this activity and I'm failing. Thankfully, they might be a bit difficult to find, but there are other types of meditation out there. There is absolutely no reason that meditation should require you to visualize something. That's just one way of many. Which brings us to the next common barrier, sitting still. Sitting still, or even just sitting during a meditation, is one way among many. It works very, very well for a lot of people. But if it doesn't work for you, there are other options. To give you a sense of how problematic this can be, let me share with you what happens when I try and sit still and see if you can relate to this experience. For me, sitting still without moving my body at all is the opposite of a relaxing experience. It requires a lot of my attention and my energy to regulate myself, to stop myself moving. This is attention that I now cannot devote to the practice of meditation. Instead, most of my mind is devoted to the practice of sitting still without moving. So what inevitably happens if I do try to sit still is I get very frustrated. In general, if I am trying to follow the instructions of a guided meditation, and they are difficult/impossible for me personally, one, I get really frustrated either at myself or at the lack of understanding of the person on the recording that I'm listening to, and inevitably it fills me with rage. You heard me. Rage. We're talking 10 out of 10, I want to put my fist through a wall level rage, caused by sitting perfectly still with slow breathing, listening to a relaxing, calming meditation. All of that causes intense rage. Now, I'm pretty sure that's counterproductive. And thankfully, now I've found a way around that, which I'll share in a minute. But this is just an example of how trying to fit in, trying to make the solution that works for other people work for me can massively backfire. And if that was my only experience of meditation, I can see myself not trying again. Why would I put myself through that? It's clearly not good for me. And part of the frustration and rage in that moment is that the person guiding the meditation is not taking any responsibility for the effect that it's having on me. If your doctor recommended you a medication and you tried it and had a severe adverse reaction, expect them to say, oops, sorry, or something like that, acknowledging your pain, acknowledging that it really didn't work for you, and hopefully helping you to find something better that does work. But when the same solution that clearly doesn't work is recommended over and over again, that is extremely invalidating, and it leaves me with all of the responsibility to fix it. Now, fortunately, I've had enough experience with meditation that I am able to fix it, and I'll share some of my tips in a minute. But for someone who's new, how can you be expected to tweak the guided meditation? Because it's your first one. You're not even sure what it's supposed to do. You're just learning. You're just sort of exploring it. And my one piece of advice with that is to trust yourself. If you're pretty sure it's not working, if you're pretty sure sitting still is not a good idea, whatever it is, change it. Try something else. Another really big one for me is that the experience that is often suggested that I'm supposed to be having is just so completely different to the experience I am actually experiencing in the moment that it's kind of hard to stay present and focused. If someone's saying, notice this, I'm like, I can't, it's not happening. And that's just completely different to my experience. Well, what do you do then? For example, I don't have a racing mind. I know a lot of people do, but for me, letting my brain do whatever it wants to do is by far the most relaxing thing I can do. It's as relaxing as dreaming or being asleep, to give my brain some input, some new ideas, something to chew on, and just let it go wherever it wants. So sitting still and focusing on my breathing is nowhere near as relaxing, nowhere near as interesting, nowhere near as insightful as being present to my brain and focusing my attention on just seeing what it does by itself. I don't want to have no thoughts. That'd be boring. I don't want to draw my attention away from my thoughts back to my breathing. That'd be boring. I want to sit there mindfully present to my brain, to my experience. Now, as an experienced meditator, that's obviously fine. You can do that if you know what you're doing. But it's also quite different to what a lot of guided meditations are actively asking you to do. So, how to make meditation work for you? Does meditation work for autistic people? It most certainly can if you find a way that suits you. There are many, many stories of how meditation is a powerful catalyst for personal growth and transformation. But the big question is what to do when following the guidance of the professional isn't helpful. So I'll tell you my main overarching strategy for this, and then I'll throw out a couple of other little things that you might like to try. So my main strategy, and this might sound a little bit counterintuitive, is to completely ignore the guidance of the guided meditation. Once you understand the concept of what it means to be present to what's going on around you, the voice in this recording interrupting me every so often might as well be like a vacuum cleaner in the next room. I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to care about it. I don't have to do what it's asking me to do. I can simply acknowledge, you have asked me to do something. Or in some cases, you have made a statement about how you think I should be feeling. That's interesting. And when I completely disconnect from that voice, it makes everything so much easier. It doesn't matter what the voice says. I just hear it and I just sort of move aside, let it go past me, and it doesn't bother me as it would if I were unconsciously trying to obey the voice. There's a very interesting overlap, and I don't know a lot about this, but I did a 30-day meditation course through an app fairly recently, and one of the thoughts I had, this is a complete tangent, but I'm not sorry, is how similar is a guided meditation to hypnosis? And I'm like, this is interesting. It's like just go into a trance state and listen to my voice and do what I tell you to do. Like, that's very interesting. And when the voice tells me to do something that I don't want to do, I get this big reaction of, hey, you tricked me. You lulled me into a trance and then you tricked me into trying to do something that I don't want to do. Anyway, that's a complete tangent. I know virtually nothing about hypnosis, but that was my experience one time. What that taught me is, what if I could just ignore it? And so I started doing that. For the last couple of days of this 30-day course, I would put on the recording and I would just go and like do the dishes or something, or have a cup of coffee and just do whatever I wanted to do. I would hear it in the background and I'd just tell myself, I don't care. I can care if I want. I'll just listen to that. Oh yeah, what are you saying again? Yeah, it's like the conversation at the table next to you in a cafe. You might overhear something, you might not overhear something. It's really not that important. So I found that incredibly liberating as a practice. I don't know if that's maybe a bit advanced as a practice if you're literally just starting looking into meditation. So some other tips that I've got is to just think about all of the different options that you have when trying meditation. And that way, when you're guided to do one of these options, you know in advance it's just a suggestion. You can do whatever you want. So sitting, you do not need to sit. You can stand, you can lie down, you can go for a walk, you can do the dishes, you can do whatever helps you to focus in that moment. Visualizing, you do not need to visualize. You can imagine what it feels like. You can focus more on the sounds. You can do whatever helps you to stay connected and present to the experience in that moment. Closing your eyes. You do not have to close your eyes. If you want, you can keep your eyes open. I actually tried going for a very, very, very slow walk, obviously with my eyes open, instead of sitting on a cushion with my eyes shut. It was actually much easier for me to stay present to my experience by just letting my attention go wherever it wanted to go. And that, for me, was the whole point of the meditation. Another kind of meta practice that I've personally found very useful is the notice and name strategy. And again, this is just a suggestion, but I personally found it very helpful to actively label things. This might be, I'm having a thought, or I'm worried, or he's interrupted me again, or that's a statement. I find that naming things really helps me avoid judgment. A good example is, that's an opinion. If someone tells me a very, very controversial opinion, instead of saying you're wrong, I will say that's an opinion. Anyway, I don't know if that's a bit advanced or not. Hopefully it's helpful for some people. Ultimately, I'm curious to hear what your experience with meditation has been. Did it work for you? Did it initially not work for you, but then you found a way to make it work for you? What are your strategies and practices to integrate meditation into your life? Please leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. Plus, your suggestions will also be helpful to others. It's always great to share our experiences. And speaking of sharing experiences, did you know that we run regular small group autistic social hangouts online through the AFTI website? If you'd like to check it out, head to the events page on the AFTI website. You can see all the times of upcoming meetings and sign up for a free come and see ticket if you'd like to join us. Well, I better leave it there. Thanks again for watching. I hope you found this discussion valuable, and I'll see you again next week. Bye.